Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Preacher. As you can see, the rocket shooting to the sky in the background. It is my pleasure to present to you Tropico 6, the latest game in the Tropico franchise from Limbic Studios, who have done some really good iteration, which has been a big theme for most of my channel who's been following World of Warcraft recently, who's fallen into a habit of kind of erasing their history and trying to rewrite it with every new expansion. The Tropico guys have just spent year after year trying to iterate on what works, make it slightly better, make it grander, make it much more fun. So we will be once again taking on the role of El Presidente, although I won't lie to you, this is my first Tropico game. I've always looked at the Tropico games with interest, but as somebody who doesn't like management games, generally speaking, I think Civ kind of put me off them. Civilization was so complex, a lot of micromanagement, delving into each little piece of minutia into controlling that world, that it kind of turned me off the whole idea when I played a game like 2 Point Hospital, which we looked at last week, which was a much simpler, less involved, and much more at designing the aesthetic, and of course games like SimCity, where you're just kind of making your own little perfect world and having fun with it. That was more my style. Tropico sits somewhere in between, as it does add that political element, but it still has that SimCity style of doing things, not quite as involved, so if that's what you're looking for, you're going to be a little disappointed. But what it adds in is this political management side, but it also slaps on a big dose of comedy with it, because instead of doing what we ordinarily do in most games, which is, of course, make the greatest society we can, in Tropico, we are, of course, a dictatorship. We are a dictatorship, and we, as El Presidente, the god amongst all, must kind of keep our people happy to a point. But if they get out of hand, the game does not prevent you from setting up a drone strike, automatic, to, you know, murder anybody who thinks who doesn't like you. You can absolutely do that in this game. That is the best way of looking at it. So let's look at how you play it and the kind of things involved to see if you guys are into this. Now, I will say we have about 26 hours in this, and I failed a lot of that. I did not know what I was getting myself into with Tropico. As I said, I expected more of a SimCity style, but it was going to be in the Caribbean. It was going to be a lot of instead of just setting up light industry, we'd be making banana farms and things like that. But absolutely not. Absolutely not. You might be able to see the Great Pyramids of Giza in the background, which has all kinds of slapstick fun to it. This game is a little bit more complex than that, a little bit more in-depth. In fact, it's pretty much designed with the idea that you play it on a sort of endless mode. The tutorial itself is fantastic. It's really funny, really engaging. Took about 6 hours to get through. You can do it much quicker, but if it is your first time looking at the Tropico series, you got to spend about 6 hours in the tutorial, but that's okay. It's not a tutorial in just do this, do this, do this. Okay, next step. It's playing the game, but what they do is they simply just eliminate various aspects of it so that you're just having fun with each new element as they slowly introduce them, and each individual one has a bit of a story to it as well. So you'll be starting off by actually freeing yourself from the crown, depending on what era you're in, and advancing forwards in order to liberate your people so you can be their great dictator. The mission system, though, there's not really a story mode as in an overall campaign, but what they do have is a select series of maps. You can see here we've unlocked a few of them, where they tell a story in and of themselves contained within each map. And they generally come with some sort of extra twist on how the game plays to tell that story. So, for example, this one is the Pirate King. It does exist in Tropico 5, but on the Pirate King Island, we have this entire island which has no natural resources whatsoever. So how are we going to provide for our people? Well, we're going to go pirating and steal everything. That's what we're going to do. So the Pirate King level is focused around that idea of going out, rolling across the Caribbean to bring back all kinds of resources and liberate maybe educated people, bring them back to the island, or liberate many people and bring them back to the island, or that kind of thing. But it does come with some custom rules, as you can see down here, like multiple pirate coves. Now, I will say this, there are a few negatives towards the game, depending on what you're looking for. One is, like, if it has a custom rule like this, the game clearly isn't designed to run with multiple pirate coves. You're supposed to be able to get one, and that causes some UI errors, because it's a rule that only exists within this map itself, and doesn't exist anywhere else, really, and therefore it doesn't quite click, and it can get a little fidgety at times. It's still workable, don't get me wrong, it doesn't bring the game to a halt or anything, but it's a little bit of a frustration you might not want to deal with. Over here, we have the chocolate factory, where we can see the Wizard Wonkmeister's chocolate factory. turned into the adventure of Tropico's rise to become a sugary paradise. And the whole level is about you finding the golden ticket. As El Presidente, as the god amongst all, then you must of course be the one to get the golden ticket and go and visit Wizard Wonkmeister's chocolate factory, only to be disappointed, sadly. And what's the solution if you're disappointed? Simple. You start your own chocolate factories in order to outdo the Wonkmeister General himself and become the big cheese in terms of making chocolate. So that's what you'll get out of the mission system. Now, what I will say is the mission system is designed with an objective in mind. I played these wrong. In fact, the only one I passed was this one. I failed at the other two that I tried, which were these. But each of those was still really fun and took about 6 hours till I failed. Like, each level was very engrossing. The issue I ran into is these levels, like this one in particular, the Pirate Cove, is not designed to run for a really long time. It's designed with you existing for a period of time, trying to achieve the objective. And if you try and build like a tropical paradise on there, which you can do, eventually it's going to come at odds with the system in place, which is there's no natural resources, there's limited space availability. You can kind of see the layout of the map. There's only certain building areas inside, and then it can kind of go downhill kind of quick. But if that's not what you're into, this is the main meat of the game right here. This is the sandbox mode. And the sandbox mode comes with all kinds of big giant maps. And this is a new addition to Tropico 6. Is the addition of archipelagos, essentially. Giant, huge maps. So you can see these are labeled as huge. And they are huge. I'm going to show you one shortly. Everything you can start with medium ones. But you can also have completely randomly generated ones depending on the rules you want to apply. So if we wanted this huge map here, we could change our era to start. So there are 4 eras in the game, and obviously, the further back in time you go, the more limited you are by the technology of the time. Little cough there, sorry. So we can see you can start in the colonial era. That's the way back you can go. And then you'll progress. Throughout these maps, you will progress. And what will happen is the political parties at the time. So starting in the colonial era, where you're under the rule of the British, you'll have to kind of do the bidding of the British as you build up your republic, to the point where you can overthrow that rule and you can become El Presidente. But until that time, until you can transition into sort of the world wars, you are going to be under the thumb of the crown, as they're called in this. And they're all very lampooned up. It's overly British people, super hippies. Your military guys are just absolute madmen who want nuclear war at all times. You know, it really is quite fun. Then you'll progress through the world wars, then to the Cold War, and then to modern times. So these maps will run for endless amounts of time. And you can also mess around. So if you're more of a guy who's, let's say, just into making like a more SimCity type republic where you can build whatever you want, whenever you want, you don't really have to worry, then you can just go say, I want it to start in modern times, which means I have access to every single item in the game, and I can change my money to unlimited. So there's no cheat mode or anything like that. It's just a part of the game. If you just want to build fantastical islands, you can go ahead and do that right from the start. The game has no issue with you doing that, which I think is pretty awesome. If you want a fuller game experience, which has some risks to it, then you can, of course, say, I want to start in the colonial era, and I want to start with 50,000. And then you can start making it more difficult. You can add, like, frequent disasters that will rain down upon you. How difficult are the opposition? The political difficulty. Are you going to have to mess around a lot with the politics, or do you want to do it like more forgiving so you don't really have to bother with the politics that much at all? And then you can choose how you want to win. So when I came to do the sandbox mode, which is when I really hit my stride with the game, I decided I chose the Swiss bank. So as you are a dictator, you kind of, again, you're looking after your people and you're kind of managing the political party, but at the same time, you've got to look after number one, which means you can siphon off funds and sort of abuse your people in order to make your own personal bank account a little bit more healthy, and then you can utilize that in the game in order to gain certain advantages. So I wasn't interested in that. I wanted to just explore the game and see what I could do with it and have a little bit more freedom than I found in the mission system, which is, again, it's chasing an objective. So I just said, okay, make my Swiss bank super high to win the game, and I'm not going to bother. I had no intention of winning the game, which is great. That's really cool. I just wanted to play the game. I had no intention of winning whatsoever. I just wanted to play the game and see what I could do with it. That was my entire intention with playing, and I've been having a lot of fun doing that. Now, you might say, how do you lose? Well, number of ways of losing. One, you can go into debt. Obviously, by about $50,000, the game will offer you to just give up, because if you're in that much debt, you've probably screwed up somewhere. Although you can choose to continue playing, certainly in the sandbox mode. You can continue playing if you know that a huge amount of money is about to come in, and you're fine, actually. Or you get voted out. El Presidente's rule is overthrown, and that's it. It's game over. So let's jump into a map. So we're going to jump into a map that is on a huge map, and we've just transitioned in this one into the Cold War. So we're just before modern times, but this map has been started way back in the colonial era. So we have moved through 2 different time periods. We're in time period 3 right now, just unlocked a great deal of new technology. And here we are. Welcome to my paradise, where we're in extreme amounts of debt. Which is fine. We're in extreme amounts of debt, but that's okay because we're actually generating so much money that it's not really a concern as it stands. But welcome to my island. Let's take a look from above. So this is a huge map. Now, this represents about 7 to 8 hours of play just to do this area. As you can see up here, we've got a number of things. How much money we have. We have minus $60,000 right now, which will, again, it'll tick over in a few moments and sort itself out. We have a population of near 3,000. Now, you'll see that's orange. We have set a population cap on this island at the moment of 3,000, and I'll explain why shortly. And this is my current support level. I have 80% support from the people. I've treated them very well. As you can see here, I provided great, wondrous things for my population. They are all in pretty happy times. So, it looks probably, on the face of it, very much like a SimCity game, right? City Skylines, something like that. Well, it has very large elements of that, there is no doubt about it, but it's not as intricate as that. And in fact, it can kind of annoy you sometimes that it's not as intricate as that. Now, a lot of the way you... because you might... a lot of the way the game plays is actually based on the resources of the island. Now, the islands can be randomly generated, all these pre-designed maps by the developers, and the Steam Workshop provides maps as well generated by the players. But if we open our overlays here, something you'll have all seen from management games in one form or another, and we look over at our resources, you can see the island is covered in various resources. We have gold, aluminium, coal, tin, nickel, all kinds of things we need. Now, these are obviously going to dictate where certain things have to happen, because we have to mine these resources. So if you want to set up like, oh, I want all this area to be where my mines are because that produces a lot of pollution. In fact, if we go back down to here, you can see we have some very polluted areas. Obviously, creating mines does have a lot of pollution. Then I want them out of the way, so I don't want people living nearby them. That is not how this is going to work. Nope, sorry. Big lose on your part. In fact, your people, especially when you build new work for people, they are going to just move in right as close as they can get to work. And they don't care how they live there. Even if you provide tons of housing, if you have no house available, or they cannot afford to even live in the cheapest possible housing, they will just straight up put a shack right next to where they work. So we can see this residence here, the shack. The Torres family has decided to just move into this free area. There she is. She's on her way to church, is Lucia. She's on her way to church, and she lives in this shack right here. Over here, we have another shack where the Johnson family have decided to move in. And we have some shacks here. In fact, when you see the shacks popping up, that means that you have a housing problem or you have an employment problem. So these are the cheapest houses you can buy, these bunk houses. As you can see, they're not very lavish. Although I will say, as a generous god, I have provided them with electricity. I am such a generous hero. But you can see these are full, 6 out of 6. Let's move around, 6 out of 6, 6 out of 6, 6 out of 6. You can see these are pretty full up, except for this one. 0 out of 6 people live there, yet people are living in shacks. And that's because the wealth required is poor. So poor people can live in those. Unfortunately, Lucia is broke. Yes, Lucia is pro. So although Lucia would love to live in my beautiful bunk houses with electricity, unfortunately, Lucia and her husband Pablo simply cannot afford it. So they're off to church and hopefully they can wash away their sins. So These are all the elements that you need to do here, as well as the usual stuff you'll find in management games. Provide entertainment, look after their faith. So we have high schools here to educate the guys. We have churches here so they can go and worship. Various churches, actually. The faith is a big part of the game. We also have circuses and bus garages. Usual things that we've put down in order to get people involved. Botanical gardens. All these kinds of things in order to make sure they're having a good time, as well as the prison. Because this, let's face it, this has a huge amount of mining in it. If I show you this here, you can see that this is a mining town. In fact, it's called Black Lung Village. It's Blacklock Village. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 mines in this little village up here. We'll call it a town, I suppose. It has 13 mines, a high level of pollution. What better place to stick a prison? And as you can see, my prisons are nice and full, as they should be with these descenders. They're well-off people as well, if I look here. Raquel Lauren is a well-off 45-year-old adult. Prison for you. And this is the best thing about it is, of course, we have a great deal of buildings we can choose from. As you can see here, we've got traffic and infrastructure, which is everything from Teamster's office. These are the guys that actually carry the materials around that we produce. We'll look at that shortly. All the way up to nuclear power, metro stations, telepheric stations, solar power plants, and so on. And then we have food and resources. So we have mines, and then we can choose a mine and choose the variety of mines we want to have. Plantations to grow crops, fishermen's wharfs, oil rigs, fish farms, things like that. And then industry, so we can actually do what we want to do with the materials that we get. So I'll talk about that when we start making some money. As well as a variety of different houses, from modern mansions, modern apartments, all these kinds of things we move through. And then to the more fun things like luxury entertainment, where we can get casinos, cocktail bars, gourmet restaurants, beach resorts, snorkel bays, hang gliding, research labs, space programs, nuclear programs, colleges, all this kind of stuff. Going to tourism, we could build cathedrals, garbage dumps, asylums. And this is the good thing about it, because you can really start getting wild with the game, because it's so tongue-in-cheek and it doesn't take itself seriously. It's really good, because we can go to the radio station. We could start, like, modifying what our radio stations are doing as well with our newspapers. So we could start saying, maybe, if we change the radio station to the clinking coin, citizens employed in the vicinity of the radio station have a chance of 25% to shift their political views towards the capitalist faction every time they work. Does not affect die-hard orientations, but decreases liberty by 10. The freedom of the people. Do we care about the freedom of the people? That's entirely up to you. You are the dictator. You can decide what you want to do. If you want to provide your people with churches and funfair piers, you go ahead and do that. If you want your people to live in uneducated squalor and be full of propaganda, that's entirely up to you as well. Of course, you can hope they go and be pirates and all that kind of stuff. So, as I said before, the game is more political than it is just building your empire. Right? As you can see, there's so much areas for us to explore yet on this island. We're barely just filling a quarter of it. In fact, there's quite a lot of space here to utilize. But it's not as easy as just building homes and setting them down. Each home, each building you see here has to be individually placed. And all the roads have to be individually placed. Now, you'll notice there's some very skewed roads like this, which I have no doubt is driving some of you insane as to why, Mike, why on earth would you do that? And the simple fact is, unfortunately, it is the nature of the beast with this game that it's not a SimCity game. It's not City Skyline. It's not designed to be that way. It's similar, but it's more designed with the political side as being at least like 50% of the game. Now, you can choose to not have it be that way. You can absolutely choose to not have it be that way. Here comes our money from our dock. So I'll explain how we make some money. Hopefully, we're going to go into the red here. Maybe.
Greetings.
Yes, there we go. There we go. A nice, sweet $156,000. Right, so here we go. Let's look at the politics side. This is the perfect timing. Nadia Kuznetsov has contacted us. Greetings, Presidente, and all listening spies. I assure you that no sensitive information will be transmitted during this conversation. But we have a small problem, Presidente, and request your help. The collective respects your methods and flexibility in many ways. You are our go-to dictator. So they want us to invite the Eastern Bloc to our embassy and host them.
Now that the war is over, Presidente, we finally have a chance to demonstrate your unlimited greatness to the world. I am so excited.
Yes, this is our #1 right-hand man, Penultimo. He loves you, he adores you, he wants to be with you. From your powerful elbows to your unswerving conviction that anything you say is right, loyal Penultimo knows your good points, but for the world to know how great my Presidente is, Tropico must put itself on the map once and for all, and how shall we do that? Okay. So, as I said, this map here is just transitioned into the Cold War. That's brought in a number of new political factions. And now we have one, the Collective, which is during the Cold War, obviously representing Russia. And we have to decide how we want to do that. Do we want a tropical paradise for tourists? We can choose our goal here in order to win this era and transition into the modern era. That's what it's asking. It's like, hey, how do you want to focus your island? This is your sandbox map. What is it you want to focus on in order to traverse this area and move into the final era of the game? So we'll choose borrow a major international landmark. And now we have some missions to go with.
One of the great landmarks of the world.
That's right. So
Thought of such a plan.
What we're going to do is we're going to steal a great landmark. So we're either going to steal the Colosseum of Rome, the Statue of Liberty, the Great Sphinx, or the St. Basil's Cathedral. Okay, so I'm just going to hit the pause button right there as we look at how things work. So as you can see here, a big part of what I've done very early game in the early colonial era was build a lot of farms. Banana farms. We have here corn. More corn, and we have sugar over here, if I remember right. Yeah, sugar, and we're also growing pineapples, more pineapples, coffee, cocoa, etc., etc. And the reason I did that is you can't just plant farms wherever you want, because these farms are obviously quite sporadic. You can see I've tried to keep them somewhat neat with these cotton farms over here and rubber. But again, it comes down to what does the map offer you. So if we come down to our crop conditions, corn could grow in most places. Sugar needs to be located around here, which is why we have our sugar farms there. Cocoa is different again. Tobacco is slightly different. So you can see you have to really pick and choose where you want to grow certain things, because they won't grow in all areas. That is just not possible. So you really have to think about what you want to produce and what you're going to do with it. Now, this is obviously the raw materials. So the corn plantation is just going to produce corn. The sugar plantation, or pineapples, is just going to produce pineapples or sugar, nothing else. In order to actually generate money, we need to do something with that. So what we could do, let's say here, we've made some rum distilleries, and therefore they're going to turn the sugar into rum. Now, everything the island produces that it does not use, now it will use some of your resources for the people, like food and stuff, obviously, right? So that's why we have things like groceries. Like we've got a grocery down here where the food is provided for the people who live in this area. Again, all individually placed down. Everything else is sent to your dock. So if I let this run just for a moment here, I want to keep some money in the bank so we can show some things. You can see here all these trucks. You see all the trucks that are arriving at the dock? Everything we produce that we don't need comes down to the dock, and it's all stocked up here. And every month or so, the freighter will arrive, and it will take everything you've produced and export it out, and somebody will buy it. Now, that's pretty good. That's happening regardless of anything you do. If you produce some excess of something, then that will just happen on its way. But it's not going to make you the really good money. The really good money is to start opening trade lines like we've done here. Now, as you can see, all my trade lines are open because we've just transitioned into a new era, and therefore, the people we were trading with no longer exist because the war's finished. So we were trading with like, the Axis. We were trading with the Allies, but the wars are finished now. It's 1953. So now we don't have access to those people. So what we would like to do now to ensure we're getting good money is start exporting some stuff that we have. So what we're going to come here is going to check, and you can see, not great. Ideally, you want about 20% above standard in order to make good money, but it's also who we're going to trade with. Do we want to trade with, they're calling themselves, what now? The Eastern Bloc. Do we want to trade with the Eastern Bloc, the Western, the Pirates? Who do we want to trade with, and what do we want to trade? That's the question. So we need to set up some trade routes right now, and that will benefit us by each shipment we send out will give us a significantly higher amount of money than we ordinarily do. So we're going to check out our customs office here, and we're asking them to stimulate exports, but unfortunately our political affiliation is pretty low. So let's come into the almanac here. This is where you start to get an idea of the political side of the game, which is a big focus of the game. In a fun way, in a relaxed way, and in a comedic way, but it is something you need to be aware of. So we have superpowers. You see Eastern Bloc and the Western powers. But we also have local factions that we need to deal with as well. So there's a couple of things going on. One, we have 187 homeless people and 254 unemployed citizens. This is not good, as you can probably imagine. Now, there's a good reason for this. The game tries to prevent you from screwing yourself over. I didn't know that. I didn't know that, and therefore I'm suffering the consequences of it. In fact, the population caps out at 1,800 as standard. I thought we were doing so well because we had 100% approval, we had 0 unemployed, we had 0 homeless. I was like, we could do better than that. And it's very easy to go to the options and come to our gameplay and actually just raise the population limit. We can raise it all the way to 10,000 should we want to. Mistakes were made because the game well and truly knows that at a certain point, you simply cannot provide enough jobs for the amount of people that will turn up at your island until you move to the more recent eras. And as we were not in the more recent era, we just got scuffed because we were in the World Wars. There was just no way to provide jobs for those people. So what we have now is the situation where you can see these shacks and we have these people who are educated. They are educated people, but there's just no jobs for them. So the reason that we have this problem is if we come into here, we have 254 unemployed people, vacant jobs, 0. And they're all high school educated. They're not idiots. These are all high school educated people who just simply cannot find work and are now going homeless, despite the fact I have 463 vacant homes. This is a bad situation that needs resolving, but as we've just moved into the Cold War era, I actually think it'll be fine. I'm going to be able to solve this now because I turned the cap down. Originally, I turned it up to 5,000 and was like, uh-oh, this is snowballing real bad into a bad situation. So hopefully now I can actually fix it and get that situation started. Let's look at our politics then and see what's going on here. So being El Presidente, you've got to keep a lot of people happy. There's a number of ways of doing that because they're often at odds with each other, which is a bit of a bummer. They are often at odds with each other, and you don't want that to happen. So the capitalists and the communists, they don't like the way each other works. The communists want you to provide free cars for everybody, which we can absolutely do. We can provide, resources for all the people, but the capitalists don't like that because it comes out of government spending. The religious do not like what the militarists are doing. The industrialists don't like what the environmentalists want. Like, if I suddenly needed power, let's just say in theory, and then I suddenly had to drop down 3 power plants because I completely messed up and gave electricity to far too many people instantaneously, then the environmentalists have probably got a big problem with this because it tends to create a lot of pollution. Desperate times, desperate measures, I say. Desperate times, desperate measures. So you're often in a battle to keep the guys happy, which is why you end up with demands like this. So on the one side, we have the militarist, led by General Rodriguez here, who wants us to go into nuclear power. He thinks we should have some bombs. On the other side, our communist leader over here, he wants a fun fair for the people. And he, as you can see here, whichever one we choose will give us a bonus to those people, but a negative consequence to the other one, right? They're not going to be happy with it. So you're trying to do this balancing act all the time. Because what happens is the only other way of losing the game, of course, is to be voted out. And if one of the factions really dislikes you, that could be a lot of people who decide to vote against you. So you have to be careful of that. But let's just suppose we really upset the communists, and the communists were going to vote against us, and that was going to tilt the vote in favor of me being ousted. Well, we could click the communists so we can find out who's the leader. So Svetlana Esposito is the leader. We could bribe her. We could kill her. We could arrange an accident. We could arrest her. We could institutionalize her in an asylum. We have choices in Tropico. We have choices of exactly how we want to do it, right? So you can tell it's got requirements here that we have to change the constitution, for example, in order to be able to kill our enemies. Now, this might tilt the vote in our favor for the next election, but the communists are definitely going to really dislike us, and we're going to have to work really hard before the next election to kind of boost that back up. Bribes work extremely well, I'll let you know. We did bribe some foreign leaders. It's helping us out, and it actually worked out very well. Actually, I'm not going to lie, it's a fully working, fully fun part of the game to explore, where you can totally take advantage of those things. So it's very, very cool. At the same time, we also have rebellion against us. We can have rebels and stuff that are building against us. And then we can have the police and our guard towers. Now, you might see everything looks nice here, right? We've got all these farms. We've got a high school there. We've got logging camp and a guard tower with militarized units inside it with cannons and whatever. And that's because you can, in fact, go to war, and your lovely republic can be attacked by naysayers and people who dislike you, which is impossible because I'm El Presidente, and that's not the way it should be. But it absolutely can and will happen. The wars aren't exactly All right, don't expect to see Command and Conquer, is all I'm saying. It's not like that. It's a very small skirmishes, which can upgrade because later down the line, as you can see as we go into the military side, we can build aircraft carriers and spy academies, right? And drone commands, and cyber operations, and security checkpoints and all that. So we can do that. And what will happen is if we set up things like security checkpoints, let's put one down. If we say near the dock, so we have a lot of immigrants arriving here, okay? So if we put a security checkpoint here and a security checkpoint here, whichever way they go, these security checkpoints will uncover any of the alternative roles a lot of the people in your city and your republic are facing, right? So we can look down here and find out their happiness factors. So they don't feel like they've got a lot of liberty, right? But they do approve of us. But you will find people who are rallying against you, are working undercover, are spying against you. And adding security checkpoints and guard towers and prison especially will find out those people. So if we come down to the prison, as you can see, we have a choice here of the work mode. Now, nearly every building has an alternative work mode, okay? Because even the corn plantations have alternative work modes. If we change this, we can change it to convict labor, which will decrease the efficiency by 30% and generate $25 for each person, so we can get them out working the roads and things. We can re-educate people, and once we start getting other options, we can actually make them, we can actually upgrade here. We can upgrade this building, and we're going to do that with an interrogation room. It's going to cost us $2,000. But what we'll do is interrogate the prisoners and find out if they, if any of their family actually have any hidden roles that we need to be aware of that they might need to be arrested for, right? Depending on how we've told the police to find people. So the police station, we can change the work mode for serve and protect. Live and let live. Every apprehended criminal will add money to our private bank account, the Swiss bank account, and the crime and safety obviously is decreased. Always on duty. The homes of employees increase crime safety, decreases job quality by 10. So we have to choose which one we want to do. And we can add a second shift here to give more police on active duty. So these are all the kinds of things you have to deal with while playing the game. And as you can see, it's a bit more involved in that. Similarly, we have research to go along with this. Now, as we've opened, as you see, the World Wars, we've uncovered lots of things. And what this does is it undocks edicts that we can actually put onto the people. So let's have a look at some of the edicts we've got. So right now, these are government-run projects that we are running for our people. So I have food for the people. So I want our people to be well fed. All right, we increase the general food quality, but it decreases. The capitalists don't like it because we have to pay for the extra food for the people, but it makes our communists happy. So capitalists is decreased by 10, but the communists gain by 5 because we're feeding the people. We also charge people for going to church. Now, the reason we did this is the faith was actually so angry with us at one point, right? The religious people were so angry with us because we hadn't put any churches down, because I'll be honest, I just didn't really think about it. They were actually so mad at us that they made us put so many churches up in order to regain our standing with them. And as you can see, the churches here, we have 5 churches that haven't been upgraded with pompous bells, of which there is lots. So we have churches all over the place, and we have chapels all over the place. Another church here. We needed to have churches and chapels everywhere. Church, 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 right? Get the idea. Another church there, another church around here, another church right there across the road from each other, purely because, and another church and another church. You can see the point, right? So we decided to charge the people for going to church. Visitors to religious buildings pay a fee of $3. It decreases the efficiency of the religious buildings by 10%, and it makes the religious slightly unhappy with us, but the capitalists love it. They love it. And then we've unlocked all sorts of other things. So mandatory siestas, of course, so the people take a bit more of a break. Child allowance, so children aren't counted in the economic wealth. This can put a lot of people in homes, so we're going to turn this on. Issue the edict. We're going to turn on child allowances, and that might upgrade some families, like we saw with the, I forget the name now. Some families that are living in shacks like this, that might upgrade them if they're having children, because you can see each person comes with their own family tree. They do have a child. Yeah, they do have a child. They have Carlos, that they've had this child, there's a chance this will upgrade them from broke to poor, and they'll be able to get a home. That will certainly affect some people. So there are good reasons to be putting out these edicts. And as you move through the eras, you can see we're in Cold War now. In the World Wars, we tax the wealthy, and we also encourage reading. Okay, we encourage reading and increase the efficiency of that. But we could do things like give people free cars if we wanted to. Like, that's no problem. We can give people free cars and so on and so forth, depending on whether you want to be more communist or whatever. So, for now, let's set some routes up. So, we're going to export some boats. These are the volumes, so we're going to do a good volume on boats. Let's send canned goods. Cigars we can do. Let's send them out. We don't want to send coal. We'll send rum. Ideally, we want to send things that we produce that are of better value. Now, base things like coal... cars, not really. Ideally, we want to export things like weapons and cigars. But we can send these out. Bananas. Hides we can send out. We'll do a small one on hides. Milk we can do, although I'd rather send out cheese, but that's okay. And now we have all these active trade routes. So we're going to get a bonus. You see this 5% above standard. We're going to get a bonus on that. And then the next time the guys come to the dock to pick up, we should earn slightly more money than we would have earned just by sending out our stuff normally. But we do have things like weapons factories producing, obviously, weapons, which sell for quite well. If we can get that, if we get a good deal on weapons, then we should be set for money for quite some time. Okay. So, what else to show you in how this works? Some of the extra stuff that goes on with it. We check into politics itself, then we deal with the superpowers. Now, the superpowers can be very helpful. We have to decide who we want to invite to our embassy. So we have an embassy here, and we can invite who we want to. Now, the game has said, hey, invite the Eastern Bloc. We absolutely do not have to do that. But the Eastern Bloc will provide us with some rewards. They will give us $5,000. We could choose to accept $5,000 straight into the actual treasury. We could accept $4,000 into our private bank account. Or we could uncover up to 5 hidden roles, because there are people definitely on the island who are working against us. So what if instead we decided to invite the Western powers? And we'll praise them. There we go. We're going to invite the Western powers, and we're going to say no to the Eastern Bloc.
Genius is undeniable, Presidente, but would you consider an idea from your humble penultimo?
Okay. So now, pollution's becoming a problem. So you can see you are given these missions and objectives throughout the game that you're playing in order to increase and decrease the various states that you have with the factions on the island. And it's really the best way of dealing with things in order to manage everyone appropriately, is to keep a check on, okay, what's our standing with various people? Like, where do we stand? Just click in politics. Who's happiest? They're pretty happy. Industrialists aren't too happy. Neither are the environmentalists. The capitalists are not happy at all. The capitalists really don't like us. So what we could do, let's just say our support was much less. We could maybe change the constitution, the rules by which we live by. And here, you can see I've only allowed the wealthy people to vote. Now, you can change that on a certain date, effective until May 1962. So in 1962, I can change this, and you can check things in order to change it early. But you can alter how you want it to be. Do we want everybody to vote? How about open ballots? How about just the wealthy? So it's generally just like the most libertarian way of looking at it, the default way, which is kind of in the middle, and then the, you know, the bit hardcore way of looking at it. Usually in all states. You can see I've gone default with all of these. I haven't found reason to go any other way just yet. But I haven't really committed to sort of RP playthrough where I'm going to run the Republic as a very, very harsh dictator and see what happens to that. I actually suspect we're going to go heavily into Daya because the ferry's only just leaving and we've nearly blasted all that money. So we actually do need to let the island run for a while. Now, I'm just going to show you some of the stuff that might upset you, but it is workable around it. The game does a very interesting thing of when you're building, say, roads, for example. Let's say, if we come up here, we wanted to extend this area down to here. Because we stopped building this road here, you can see I pre-placed this road up here. Because we did that, the game will try to automatically snap to the endpoint because it thinks that, okay, you set the endpoint there. But perhaps I actually, if we extend this a little bit, perhaps I actually want the endpoint to be here, right? So we can come up here and say we want to extend this road a little bit. You see the way it won't let me select this area? And it tries to base everything off where junctions are. So it says this in the middle, this isn't a junction. So you must really want it to be at this junction, right? Because that would be neat and tidy. And it's like, no, actually. And no, I don't. So if I, like here, you see the way it's sort of glued me to the end? Now, because I don't actually have a junction here, I can pick wherever I want. So let's say if I came out of here. In fact, let's be realistic about how I would do this. So there are resources here. I know there are. Yeah, there's... Okay, so we've got various things here. So let's do a little bit of building. We're going to say... We're going to come down to food and resources. We're going to mine this aluminium. We're going to put that there. We're going to mine that aluminium. Now, this is kind of a large resource. So we might be able to get away with 3 mines on here. Yeah. Ooh, we might even get away with 4 if we're lucky. We are lucky. So we got 4 mines on that one spot. Perfect. Right, so we have 4 mines coming there. I don't think there's any other mines in this area. Let's just double check. No, we're mining everything else. Perfect. So we got 4 mines going there. Now, these need to be corrected by road. And you can see these red arrows that's saying, hey, this needs road. So what you might ordinarily do is do something like, well, I want some road here. And then I kind of want to go to there. Now, you see how it makes this curve? And you see the way it tries desperately to get you to go to the junction. You can see the way it goes all wibbly-wobbly. Now, the way of solving this, you can see here, it does the same. See the way it auto snaps to the junction, but it won't go anywhere else. Because it's like, hey, you want it to go to a junction, right? And it's like, no. I don't want to go to a junction. I want it to just go to... I want to go to, like, here and then come across. And it tries to automatically pick where you want to go. And it can lead to some really... wonky scenarios where they don't match up. In fact, I'm going to have this problem here. Now, I've gone 1 square too far with this road, as you can see. What I actually want is to go straight up. You see the way it won't let me? So what I actually have to do here to fix this, and it's a minor inconvenience, because once you're aware of it, it's not that bad, is you know to stop there. And then it will absolutely allow you to do it as you want it. But you see how you have to be a little bit more precise than probably what you want to be. And the best way of solving it, actually, is just to drag the road across the front. Like this. And we're also going to do the same there to connect that exit. And we're going to do the same here. Oh, see this? Yeah, this is where it makes me angry. Because it's like, ah! So we have to demolish the other road. Again, it's because this isn't SimCity. It's not City Skylines. It's about more than that. But it does mean these elements get a little frustrating. Okay, so those areas are all nicely connected up now, and we are connected to that area. And what's going to happen now is we're going to see all our guys turn up and start constructing this area for us. But now we have a village to sell. This is a big town. Because what's going to happen once these facilities are set up, as the guys get building them, is that people are just going to move in here because there are jobs here. And there are a lot of people who want jobs. It's as simple as that. We have 240 people who need jobs. And we're about to open jobs here, right, in these mines. And if we watch this play through, where the guys actually, we got a fire going on, but we have good fire courage, we should be fine. We'll very quickly start seeing shacks pop up. Because people are going, oh, okay, well, there's work over there. We need to live over there. Otherwise, we're never going to get any work. You know, we're just not going to be able to do anything. And it also depends on how educated the people are. If they're high school educated, they're not going to get anything done. They don't want to work in the mines. They want to work in more complex jobs, which means the eras need to increase with it. Now, we might, assuming this, we're close enough to this area, people might stay over there rather than coming here. But I would expect shacks to pop up here as people are moving towards this area to get jobs. But I could be wrong. I would be surprised. Traditionally, you would have expected shacks to pop up here. Yeah, they have 5 workers. They're fully employed. Everybody staying in their current houses? Really? That's amazing. I would have absolutely expected a lot of shacks to pop up around here because of the travel time. In fact, we're going to clean this up a little bit. I'm sure you guys have noticed this already. We're a little short on cash at the moment. So I'm going to have to wait for a bit of money to come in and clear this up. But you get an idea of how the building works anyway. I am gobsmacked that we didn't get shacks popping up here. Probably because there's so much employment over here. But you would have expected the guys There's certainly who are unemployed to come and get their jobs over here. But as this is a new area, it's missing out on a lot of things. Entertainment is probably slightly too far away. The grocery is probably good enough. The clinics are here, and they're full, by the way. So the healthcare in this area is probably quite bad, given the nature of the amount of pollution and stuff. So what we need to do now is you can't just build this area and just say, okay, that's done. We now need to flesh this area out. Otherwise, the people are going to get really, really angry with us. Really, really angry. And we don't want that. No more coconut trees. Disaster. Our coconut empire is running dry, which is a big shame. And there we go. A lot of money coming in now. So now we can keep double checking. You can see these have gone up to 10% now. That's why we did the low trade routes. Because now we can start thinking about getting more money out of... with more benefits, because now these have gone up to 10%. So we have all these benefits coming. I think the only other thing to mention here, I think you've got a good grasp of the game. Pirating is a thing. I should mention pirating is that we can send out our commandos. We have commandos and we have pirates. We can send our pirates out to go and fetch money, to go and fetch various resources. They're stealing it, obviously. But that's why you keep your pirate cove very well hidden. Although mine's not anymore because we've expanded the level so much. Mine is actually over here, right next to the funfair pier. Which is just the way it went. It was hidden at one point because this area was completely locked off. But, you know. Things happened. What are you going to do? Things happened. So we're going to have to say goodbye to our coconut grove. Let's demolish it and get it out of there. Bye. I also noticed, I believe it said there was no more trees to fell. So one of our logging camps has run out of trees. I can't quite see it at the moment. But the game runs super well for what it is. It's given the size. I mean, eventually we are going to have all of this going on. I mean, you make plans, don't you? You make so many plans, such as this is going to be my tourist island. Over here might be where the wealthy live, and I'll relocate my palace, which is currently located here. This is my house. This is my house in the middle. I've surrounded it by fields, so... Oh, poor people living near the palace. Next to El Presidente, of all people. How outrageous. How thoroughly outrageous. Absolutely unacceptable, I tell you. But ladies and gentlemen, there is Tropico. And obviously, you've probably been aware of the absolutely awesome soundtrack in the background, which is a joy. Not faultless by any means. Not faultless. There are also a couple of people reporting that they have shifted to Unreal 4 engine. Usually they use their own... Okay, we now have captured Stonehenge, but unfortunately we can't afford to build it right now. And support is dropping. We need to get to work here, boys, in order to repair this situation. But we will work on that. Some people have reported that once everything gets going, that their PCs are struggling a little bit. So bear in mind and check the requirements before you buy it. It's been fine for me, is all I'll say. We need to do a trade export with the Eastern Bloc. We can keep them both happy, despite the fact that we didn't invite the Eastern Bloc to our embassy. And we've got the Western powers in there. We can keep the Eastern Bloc very happy. So, and if we don't, they will attack us. And they will destroy some of our beautiful republic. Look at this road. I'm so sorry. It's before I knew any better. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. I beg of you, don't judge me. It's not necessary. Oh, these are all fully staffed and no one's living there. That's awesome. The soundtrack is incredible. The soundtrack is absolutely incredible. Some things I would have liked is a bit more customization with names. I like naming things after people, districts, circuses, churches. I would have liked that. You can't really do that. Everything designed is to be nice, colourful, obvious, and fun. A little bit more customization on that, although I will give them credit that the customization that they put on you personally, you are able, in fact, if we drop back to resave the game here, save it there, drop back to the main menu, I will show you briefly, you can fully customize your Presidente! You can, in fact, fully customize your Presidente, which I think is quite nice. Let's go to customization. Load into this. Some nice tips down the bottom, such as Dictator Charles Taylor campaigned for president of Liberia on the slogan, "He killed my ma, he killed my pa, I'll vote for him." And he won the election. How much faith you want to put on historical accuracy there, that's entirely up to you. So there you go. This is my Presidente. The Stetson I thought was clutch, along with the Hawaiian tourist shirt and the cigar and the sunglasses. I thought that was absolutely the perfect way to go around it. But you can fully customize the palace as well. Do you want plastered walls? How do you want it to have? And people will, you know, it's how it appears in the game when you're playing. You can have flags. Do you want a big garden? Do you want a fountain? Yeah, you can add all these things in. So let's say we'll add... I'm going to add some Gothic fountains in. Yeah. I've also put a shark tank on the roof. Well, it's a fish tank, but I could put a glass pyramid or a helipad or a rooftop garden. But I like the fish tank. I think it really works well. Yeah? You can do all these kinds of things. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Tropico 6 available on Steam. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.